From Significant, this is Crack It in an Hour.
Hello, and welcome to Crack It in an Hour. If you're wondering what this is, let us explain it for you. My name is Simon. I'm a partner at Significant, a company that tries to solve business problems with creativity. And I'm here with my two founding partners. I have Jesse. Say hello, Jesse.
Hi.
And Roman. Say hello, Roman.
Bonjour.
And so we're putting our expertise to the test, if you will, with this podcast. What we're going to do is we are going to give ourselves exactly 1 hour to crack a problem. Now, here's the deal with this problem. Only one of us gets to bring a problem, and the rest of us have to try and figure it out blind with zero research, zero figuring out, zero time in advance. So, guys, here we go. I'm going to officially start the clock, right? Hold on. I got to get it all set up.
The anticipation is building.
Start right now. 1 hour has started, okay?
Let's go.
I'm going to set the expectations really quick. At the end of this hour, we're going to figure out, did we crack the problem or not? And because it's our first episode, of course, expect a little bumps and bruises along the way, but it should still be fun, should still be interesting, and hopefully we get to some interesting solutions. I'm going to tell you guys where I went to with our very first problem. Are you ready?
I can't wait.
Okay, so here we go. I got a little nostalgic. Okay. I got a little nostalgic. And originally I was like, ooh, maybe I give you guys 3 and we figure out which one we want to crack. But then I was like, no. One of these is more fun than the others. And I thought for the first one, it should be fun.
Nostalgic as in like Wayne Gretzky nostalgic?
Nostalgic as in Wayne Gretzky. Think 80s. Exactly. Okay. So my first idea was, what if we had to bring landlines back? That was my first one. I was like, how would we bring landlines back? There's some interesting stuff. I did some research on it. I had some thoughts on it. And I was like, no, that's not interesting enough. And then I was like, okay, here we go. What if we brought fruit back? Because I don't know if you know this, but fruit consumption's way going down compared to where it used to be. It's actually way on the decline. So it was kind of one of those ones that I was like, oh, this is kind of an interesting problem.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But here's the deal.
Oh, boy.
I thought we got to get a little crazier. We got to bring it a little more interesting. I wanted to bring something back that was a blast from the past. And if we all remember this correctly, it was huge for a time, but it is nowhere to be found now. There's derivations of it, and we can discuss that. But there's derivations of it, but it is nowhere near as popular as it used to be. And so my question to you, and the question to crack, is how do we bring aerobics back?
Ooh,
Yeah, it's a really good one.
that's a very good.
Ooh,
I was excited about fruit, but this is a better one.
It's a good opportunity to get canceled in the first episode with that one.
So, okay, here's the thing. I did a little bit of research on this. If you actually compare aerobics to some popular exercises, it is better cardiovascular endurance than strength training and yoga. It has low to moderate impact options, which a lot of things don't, such as HIIT and running. There's a full body coordination and rhythm, which is very helpful for functional exercise versus, say, weightlifting and cycling. It actually has sustainable fat burning, because the thing about aerobics is you can actually keep doing it for the rest of your life. Another thing about it too, longer workouts for people who like to really get involved with it. I'm going to give you a few other little facts too. Community and social engagement is obviously something that feels interesting for this moment in time. And it actually has, and I'm not making this up, proven stress reduction and mood boost. It's comparable to dance and yoga in both of those two things. Can I tell you guys some barriers that I dug up? And we can start there.
Yes,
and then
please.
You can ask me more questions.
Okay, I might not have a million questions.
I might not have all the research on this, but there's some good barriers on this. Okay. The first one I found is it really was sort of, unfortunately, kind of considered too corny. Do you know what I mean? It became one of those things where, unfortunately, the narrative around it, the leg warmers, the leotards, all of that stuff, that boom, almost kind of like it also caused the pop of it. Another one that is commonly considered a problem for this is that if you look at modern workouts now, generally speaking, the most popular ones are a lot more hardcore. There's not much interest in something that is considered a little more not, and I'm not taking away anything from it, but a little more entry level.
I'm just listening now, right? I'm not.
Please keep asking
yet.
questions. Keep jumping in. Ask any questions at a time.
I know I would challenge the hardcore part, but we can. I'm going to let you.
Well,
go
this is an
through it.
opportunity. I think.
go on.
Many super popular workouts are not hardcore. Like
I agree.
Pilates.
I agree.
It's massive. It's fantastic.
Pilates is hardcore.
It is very hardcore.
It's female, but it's hardcore.
Oh no, I do Pilates, and okay, so I don't have the right definition of hardcore.
Hardcore, as in like, here. Can I give you a better way of explaining? I think the skew has turned more towards how can I optimize 25 minutes into doing very strenuous training compared to what I think aerobics was intended to do.
I'll give another version of that because I read something interesting about how if like there's a mental thing where if you're not incredibly sore after the workout, you don't think it was a good enough workout.
Totally.
So I think so many workouts today are designed to create a feeling of positive pain, if
Absolutely.
you will.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying.
And I think that's how I would
Okay,
define
yeah.
No, that's
hardcore.
great.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a few others. Apparently, gendered stereotypes started to hurt its appeal. It became considered a women's workout, which didn't show the expansion of it. And then, frankly, I think there was a really good thing I read about. It sort of had one note. There's a lack of reinvention. If you actually go back in our lifetimes, there was a time yoga was considered a little fringe, right? And then it sort of adapted this understanding of being about wellness. It attached to wellness. And that was how it suddenly really started popping. And if you look at aerobics, it was kind of always consistently caught up in the aesthetic of aerobics, the kind of Jane Fonda, the sweat into the oldies, all that sort of thing. And then one that I don't think I consider as serious is just there has been a shift towards individualized and digital workouts. There's less class stuff, but that's I take that one with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I definitely. Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Aerobics, similar to dance. What do you think about Zumba? Like, was Zumba the new...
I'm glad you asked this.
Okay, me
so
too.
what I did was I actually looked into what is modern aerobics. And again, I used Gemini, used a few other AI tools. And the best interpretation they said there are some things that keep the principles of aerobics, but have continued to kind of evolve beyond aerobics. And one they brought up was Zumba. Another one they brought up was water aerobics. And they said that there's a tenuous connection to HIIT class. Because they're like, if you really think about it, is high intensity interval training. It's a lot more, it's almost like an aggro version of aerobics, but classic aerobics is what we're talking about here.
Classic aerobics.
We need to find a way to bring back classic aerobics. Any other questions? And you continue to ask away all sorts of time.
Let me ask. I'm always going to ask a bunch of like ignorant foreigner questions.
Do it.
Classic aerobics in my head is Reebok high tops, Reebok step, Jane Fonda, Jamie Lee Curtis, that famous scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, right?
Can I give you a slight, here's what I'm going to say about that. All I am interested in bringing back is the activity
The sport.
of
Yeah,
aerobic.
yeah, totally.
Now, if we use a retro play to bring it back, that's fine. But I am saying, how do we get thousands of aerobics classes started across this country overnight? How do we get people interested in the idea of aerobics? How do we rebrand aerobics to be something that people are very, very interested in? But you bring up a good point, because I think we're starting to get in here into the background, turning into starting to kind of probe, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you look at the world right now, I'll just give you one theme of sort of nostalgia. I mean, that's where I kind of came up with this one to begin with, right?
100%.
There is
Totally.
clearly an interest in nostalgia right now.
And we have the queen of nostalgia
We have
around,
Jesse.
around that table.
Thank you so
Like,
much.
Arguably, like the internet queen of nostalgia is sitting here. So I was just hoping that Jesse would be the one like to mention that term first.
Well, the funny thing is, I know that is my title, maybe even self-given title. But I actually don't go to nostalgia right away. Like, because to your point, I think that the nostalgia, it depends. Are you trying to bring it back short term or long term?
Ooh.
Because short term, I think this is always the risk with nostalgia is it can bring something back as like a fad, a moment in time, a little moment of escape. Let's all get into like aerobics and get some cute outfits and have those outfits feel very 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And we're talking about like a 6-month thing and then it dies off. Or do we really see a value? Like you talked about some serious, like heart-based, like low impact type of value for, I would argue, lots of people, especially potentially older consumers, which I think is really interesting, not to like go all the way there, but there are so few there are so few brands in general that have an older audience, which I think is such a
I agree.
freaking disappointment.
Yeah.
And that's like one place I start to go because there's so much opportunity in the low impact, but workout.
But you said cardio, low impact, full body, sustainable fat burning.
Yeah, these are all very popular.
This is also Gen Z.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
It's everywhere. I don't think this is a how do we bring it back short term as a stunty thing. This is an actual business opportunity. Mm-hmm. This is like a thing that I think modern society is ready to see back.
Yeah.
Now, to your point, the way it's happening, we can talk about that at some point. But just the activity itself is really interesting.
I agree.
Like I would go to an aerobics class right now.
You bring up an interesting point, Jesse, which is, sorry, go ahead, Romain.
Why? Can I ask why would you go? Because I think that might get us someplace.
Yes. Well, okay. The reason my head didn't go to nostalgia first is because it went to fun, which I would argue is my other passion point.
Yeah.
You're going to have to choose like nostalgia,
fun,
aerobics
just hits right in the middle of your two back.
Exactly.
It's the middle of that Venn diagram.
I'm telling you, I was ready for the fruit problem, but you really absolutely hooked me.
Are you serving candy at the end of the class?
Yeah, exactly. It's my Venn diagram of fun and nostalgia. But I know, like, Roman, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about an article, I think was in the New York Times, about how Americans are doing fitness wrong.
Yeah.
And it talked about how fitness in the US is like it's like something you build into your day that is separate from the rest of your day. Whereas in other parts of the world, it's fun. It's like a thing you do in the park with people. Like you take 5 minutes of your day and you join up a group that's randomly in a park somewhere and do something together. And I'm not saying that's aerobics, but it really, I think, sparked something for me about how unfun wellness culture is right now. I think
that's a fair thing. My mind went to, based on that, which is like, I think a lot of the times right now, exercise is a means to an end. Do you know what I mean? It's either I'm going to get in better shape, or in my case, it allows me to justify drinking beers and eating food. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it is sort of like, okay, that's the thing I got to do. And it's not to say I don't like the things I do to get exercise. I've actually really enjoy them, but I wouldn't qualify them as fun. I'd qualify them as rewarding. You know what I mean?
Totally.
There's not a lot of fun in them. So, okay. So this is interesting because we're starting to get some really, really, really juicy spots here. We're talking about acceptance of the fact that you don't have to be at an aggro level to do something. We're talking about fun. We're talking about community. We're talking about something that I think, Roman, you said this, goes beyond just one generation, but actually kind of speaks to a number of generations right now. And what's the oldest trope in the book? We're more connected than ever, but have never been more alone.
I can't believe you just said that.
I had to say, we got to add a sound effect there of just like an alarm going off every time a horrible trope goes off.
It's so bad.
But it's interesting what you're talking about. Okay, so is anything starting to percolate yet? Are we having any ideas? We have 46 minutes left to crack this. Where would you start? Are you thinking you start? Because
I want to say one more thing on the.
Let's keep talking.
On your, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but on the we've never been more connected yet. So
you're saying?
No, please.
I'm the first one to ever say that. By the way,
yeah, take away my strategy card, please. No, but it's funny because I I go to Pilates, which you could argue is a group class, but it's a very individualistic experience.
Right.
And so I do think there's something very fun in the idea of like, at least I've never done an aerobics class. I have done Zumba. I've done dance classes, which I'm a horrible dancer, but I find it really fun to just go for it. But to me, there's something about that particular type of class exercise that is inherently collective. Maybe because it feels like a party.
Right. Okay, so
that I think is really interesting.
Do you think part of the sell, if we're going to try and make this huge again, do you think part of the sell is the class element? Because let me give you an example. There's another world where we figure out a way to do classes through Peloton, and anyone at home could do their own routine.
I 100% the social aspect is part of it.
Yes.
Did you see that thing about, and I'm not going to name them, but one of the big chains, like lower end gym chains that had to up their prices because Gen Z was actually going there too much.
Yes.
You know, their business. Yeah. You see what I'm talking about?
Against the business model.
Because they were hanging out, right?
The business model is based on, we're going to charge really, really cheap. Because people are not going to show up.
And they'll forget about it.
And then post-COVID, like the whole generation realized that being together was actually fun. And they started showing up to meet people at the gym, right?
Incredible.
So that's amazing. And so that is why, or one of the reasons why you make it in person. I 100% there's like productivity gains, whatever you work at home, etc., etc. I think in an aerobics class, part of the sell, the beauty of it is the shared experience and the chat that you have after.
Yes.
And dare I say, like it's stuff for younger people to meet people. And then at some point you need to explore all options to meet people.
An interesting
and that's one of them.
Yes.
So I think in person is like a real fantastic opportunity for branding. Fantastic opportunity for
have like an NA bar outside the door.
The experience of it. Just imagine what it could look like inside. Like I think phenomenal studio opportunity. Obviously, cost different business model, but phenomenal opportunity. I think.
I think it's such an interesting zag. Like here's my vision of it, which is, I'm not saying lean into nostalgia, but lean into fun, which is what I think you said, Jesse. Because like to me, like so many of the bigger places right now have kind of become like intentionally Spartan or intentionally wellnessy.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like there's nothing much that you go into a gym and you're like, this looks like a fun place. And that's an interesting starting spot for aerobics.
I think that any category or business idea within the category that could lead to an apparel brand being born from it is a damn good idea. Yeah. And I think sure, they could start with collabs. Like I mean, I'll do anything for a cute outfit, to be honest. And like I do think like, you could lean into the nostalgia, do a fun collab with some apparel brand. But I actually think bigger than that, a new brand that enters, like I'm trying to think of an example from another category, like entered specifically as like a running brand or specifically as, like there was the tennis apparel brand I can't remember the name of, but like if you're like aerobics.
Well, it's funny.
Apparel.
I actually did a little search on pre-existing brands that really associated with the height of aerobics.
Tell me.
Reebok, which came up, which was a huge one at the time. The freestyle sneaker, introduced in 1982. Roman's telling us he has a pair.
I may or may not.
and have you ever done aerobics before?
I have not.
Nike was a little later to the game, but they showed up trying to remember, this is a time when Nike wasn't the top dog the way they are now. They followed up later and created the Nike Air Trainer, which was specifically meant to be an aerobic shoe. And then, is that really? That's amazing.
Wearing it right now.
So that was originally intended to be an aerobic shoe.
I'm starting to think maybe you really did do aerobics.
Well, you know how that shoe became popular though.
Was it Agassi?
Two people, Bo Jackson and Agassi.
Yeah, because I remember they tried to rebrand it as Cross Trainer, right?
Yeah, and then Bo Jackson started wearing it playing.
Yeah.
And then Agassi, no, not Agassi, Johnny Mac. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. They sent it to him to just hang out. And he was like, I'm going to play with it. They were like, no. He was like, yeah.
Really?
And that's it. Yeah.
So if you look at this, it's a very interesting thing because, I mean, aerobics was sort of the genesis of cross training, like which became something else in and of itself. Keep going for 2 seconds. One is LA Gear. Do you remember LA Gear?
No.
Oh, I remember LA Gear. And then another one that I found interesting was there was a big name in leotards at the time called Danskin. And here's the thing I found out about them is they've actually now evolved into a yoga brand. They do yoga tights, they do yoga things. But at the time, they were kind of known for sort of like ostentatious leotards, leg warmers, all of that stuff. So there's some really interesting, both sort of like dormant brands, as well as like very famous brands right now that you could immediately sort of try to figure out and integrate.
Let me ask a question. Was it associated to a location? Like, you know how like in the US, if you eat grains and you do yoga, you're from LA.
It was originally.
It's LA?
Yeah, it's originally.
That's cool.
But then it went like, there was literally like, I mean, it's become a meme now. Look it up if you ever haven't seen it before. But like, did you ever see the like aerobic national championships and stuff like that? Like
I spent every Sunday morning like looking it up on YouTube, Simon.
Wearing your Reeboks.
Absolutely.
But it was a thing and it was huge. And then it just fell off a cliff. And I mean, it's all the things we talked about. I mean, it doesn't help that like, you know, sweating to the oldies, all that stuff sort of took the narrative and broke it.
Okay, but here, that is an interesting question as you think about the present day, or shall we say the future. Is it something that is better? I think it's so easy when we think about how do you bring something back in culture to assume the best way to do it is in LA, in New York, in a city. But is it something that's maybe better in the rest of the country, in the heartland?
Yeah. No, that's a good call.
I think it could be interesting.
There was yes, there's something very interesting about that, and it becoming especially a lot more I think fun too.
Well, that's why my head went there when you asked the geographic question, because it's we sit here and we talk about, oh God, I'm going to say it again. We've never been more connected yet so lonely, but that's actually a very
you got to drink it. You got to take a sip of your drink every time you say that.
People are going to start to believe that you believe in that fucking sentence. Like you have to stop talking about this.
Okay, but that is actually a very coastal point of view.
Totally.
Like we think that the concept of community is dead, that we're all in our own isolated bubble.
We suck at it.
Because we suck at it. But the idea of community is alive and well in the heartland.
Totally.
Like people are still spending time together. Yeah. They function as community family units, not in the traditional sense of family. But they have a lot of fun. So I think it's interesting because you kind of have two paths. You can kind of introduce it into the coast and say, wouldn't it be nice to have this gap filled? We have all of these sort of aggro hardcore options here in LA. Wouldn't it be nice to have something fun? Or you make it feel born of the heartland and say, this is the fun that everybody's having. And you almost make the coast jealous of what the heartland has.
What's your take, Roman?
You go.
I think to that point, if you launch on a coast, they're almost, just because it's so snobby, there almost needs to be an intentional irony to it versus the genuine joy of what this could be. And that's, again, that might be just a hot take and an overgeneralization of things, but I think you can come at a more genuine level of acceptance of there's a few things here that are lower barriers to entry in the heartland, right? Which is like, we're going to do things as a community. We're going to have fun doing them. And we're not going to take it all so damn seriously that I think, like, God knows, like places like LA and stuff like that get so caught up on. Now, that's not to say it couldn't work in LA. I just think you got to package it differently if that's your tactic to launch.
Well, it's the difference between an aerobics Erewhon partnership and an aerobics Wrangler partnership.
Let me give you a counter to this, just because we're here for that.
Yeah, I have one
this
too.
Is perfect. This is great.
I think if you have global aspirations, which, you know, why not?
Yeah. Okay.
I think outside of the US, people look to like the arrogance of LA and New York, and I live in LA and I grew up in Paris, so I know a thing or two about arrogance. And
yeah, that's pretty good.
And I think if you're coming from the heartland, you have less chances, unfortunately, even though it might be more genuine, it might be more more authentic in terms of connections, what we're talking about what this thing could bring back, like community led. But you have less chances to make it outside of the US. That will be a hot
good
take.
point.
That will be a very controversial take.
Yes.
But this also might speak to the fact of where we all come from. Because Jesse, you're from rural Pennsylvania.
As rural as it gets.
I'm from a mid-sized town in Canada, a steel town in Canada. So it's interesting that you bring that up, because I don't think I was going there immediately, but I do see where you're coming from.
I'm going to give you the counterpoint to your counterpoint, though, obviously, which is I think it's wrong to assume that aspiration only comes from the coasts. Because I think that, like, more and more today, I mean, not to go on a complete tangent, I know we've talked about this before, but the life that so many people are living not in big cities is actually becoming the aspirational way of living for all these people who spent years and years living in tiny apartments in crowded, noisy cities. So to build something, and I know what you're saying from a culture and arrogance standpoint, but is it not possible that actually building something from the center of the country actually does not limit the potential of aspiration around that thing?
Sorry, let me be super clear. I agree with that. And I personally agree with that. We're getting into like another problem to crack, which is a bigger one that we're not going to crack around this table ever, and we're never going to bring here. But we're getting into like perception of Heartland America outside of the US.
Yeah.
Heartland America outside of the US means a thing that the rest of the world does not want to touch.
Right.
And that's where I was going. It's like, if you want to go outside, but I fundamentally, personally agree with what you're saying. Aspiration, even today, we're seeing is not necessarily just coming from the coast, right? When you stay
totally
within like the and maybe I'm taking it to a place we don't need to go global, but it was just that thing that came in my head. But what I'm thinking
is that maybe this is the longer path to growth, and who wants the longer path to global world domination. Exactly. But it's that instead of going from LA to global and missing a whole opportunity potentially, you go from middle to coast to global.
Yeah.
So I think you could still potentially get there. But I have a crazy idea.
Go for it.
What if? Okay. I was thinking about this ever since you said that it actually spans generations, because I got excited about it being right for the older audience. And you're right. It is very much, it feels like something Gen Z would also be super into. But have you seen, like, there are so many videos of either Gen Z befriending older, like lonely older people, or being super close with their grandparents, and like tons and tons of TikTok videos of people spending time with their grandparents and just like opening up the relationship between old generation, younger generation. And so what if the whole concept was that you had to bring, like, you could only come in if you brought a friend, but that friend could not be, like, bring a grandma to aerobics, and it doesn't have to be your grandma.
See, here's the thing. It's an interesting hook.
You're like, there's a lot of legal implications on that one.
But the way I kind of see aerobics, and the reason I was so interested in it, is it's a little bit of a blank slate as to, like, let me give you an example. And it was something that kind of like was for me, is like, you could do death metal aerobics. You can do to your point, granddaughter, grandparent aerobics. Like, it's kind of a blank slate as far as like thematically speaking. When you have an exercise that's inherently inclusive, it can then become modified and become anything you want it to become. And so that's where I started to get a little bit excited, which is like, it doesn't necessarily be just that flavor. I love that flavor.
That's interesting.
But maybe not just that flavor.
That is interesting because
100%.
One of the other challenges that I imagine, I mean, yes, I agree. The social aspect is one of the most important parts, but pretty much every modern workout, class, studio, whatever, claims community as like a core part of their offering and strategy and benefits.
How many of them do you believe?
I actually believe all of them, but I don't know that their communities are as powerful as they think they are in terms of bringing more. I think they're more internal than they are external in terms of like actually growing the business. And probably it's just many of them are not leveraging their communities as well as they could be. And they're just saying, this is like a community and look at all these people that love this place and would just, but I think it's like what you're talking about is a really interesting take on community, because you're no longer saying like every one of those, if we listed all of the modern, berries, et cetera, I could define for you at least my perception of what that specific community is. And if I don't fit that description, I'm not going, because I'm like, oh, I don't really think this is for me. But now you're talking about sort of blending the idea of subcultures within the idea of an overall fun workout experience. And I think that could be pretty interesting.
So, okay, let's keep talking about this for a second. Which one is the one, and I apologize, I literally like do individual workouts, but which one's the one that like has a bit of a, like, we got a smoothie bar, we got a few other things when you go inside. There's a few of those, right?
I feel like there's a million of them.
Aerobics was like the beginner of that. It was the beginner of like, this isn't just a place you work out, this is a place you hang out. And that to me also felt like an interesting part of this whole entire thing. Okay, now you just made me I don't know why this brought me here, but aerobics kind of became super popular because of VHS tapes. Well, you had the Jane Fonda workout. That was a huge part of it.
So there is I know you mentioned Peloton before, and it is an interesting question, because it's like, you don't want to make this yet another at-home workout experience. But I do feel like there was something about that pulled you into the community. It made you feel part of that, of her community in a way that maybe you can't do that in the modern world. Roman wants to say something.
Yeah, because you're talking about Jane Fonda and you're talking about Peloton, and the relationship between these two is entertainment.
Oh yeah, entertainment, 100%.
It's entertainment. So if you bring back whoever, I'm not going to name anyone because I have no fucking clue who to put in there, who's going to be like, okay, this is your instructor.
Make it fun. Make it entertaining.
Would you dance with a semi-celebrity? Yeah, you would.
Absolutely.
Like, you see what I mean?
Who would it be? Who would be the modern Jane Fonda?
And I don't know if the question is the modern Jane Fonda. I think you brought up a very good point in the beginning, because modern Jane Fonda gets to a certain stereotype of aerobics.
Okay, so let me give you...
And I think we should talk about that at some point. What is the modern aerobics?
Well, let me give you a bad example of something that we know exists in culture right now, which is TikTok dances. Is there TikTok aerobics? Is there a world where that becomes sort of your entry into aerobic culture? Is you start seeing these people doing aerobic exercises or aerobic performances that you're trying to duplicate? I know that's a weird thought, but it's interesting, right? Because then at that point, you're starting to like, I think the thing we've realized through this conversation, and stop me if I'm wrong, is in one way, aerobics feels very foreign and it feels very antiquated. But then the more you start talking about it, you're like, man, there's like a lot of really weird sort of parallels to things in modern culture right now.
Well, I think if you go the TikTok route, the benefit I see is one way to think about it is basically tricking a bunch of people into falling in love with aerobics.
Right.
Like you do 2-3 minute TikTok dances that are actually aerobic exercises. You get everybody doing them, and then it's like, haha, you just did aerobics and you love it. Surprise. Because
that's lovely.
I feel like it's one of those things that you either have to you either have to trick people into it or you have to spend a lot of time convincing them it's not the aerobics you think it is. And we all know that that's the much harder option. And there's so many ways to do it. It's not impossible.
But you just change the name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How do you say aerobics backwards? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I could imagine a world where you use TikTok to almost trick people into it.
I just like imagine right now in this world, like we're about to watch the Super Bowl and you're literally about to see all of these, you know, intense advertisements about sports and all this stuff. Imagine seeing an aerobics ad. Just how like interesting and cut through that would actually weirdly be if you saw that happening right now.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to ask that question. It's a shitty question, but it's a way to understand how we would go to market with this.
No, we need to figure it out, guys. We got 25 minutes left.
What does the ad look like?
See, I don't know. Here, I'll give you my bad example. Okay. My bad example is literally you open on what you expect to be a typical a sports ad. Maybe you see, let's say we got the Nike aerobics account. Okay. So we can use all the Nike athletes. At that point, it's like you wake up, you see Sha'Carri, you see LeBron, you see Ronaldo, you see all these people that you're expecting, you know, you've seen this ad, the grind, the get up, the hustle, the this, but then it switches over. For the first time, you're seeing them have fun. It's a celebration of the idea of you can actually enjoy this. This isn't just rise and grind and just do it because you need to keep getting better. This is about just the sheer joy and celebration of movement and community and stuff like that. And so you kind of sort of like subvert the expectation to kind of go in on something like that. I don't know.
Because even athletes hate working out.
Totally.
Look, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that you basically are confirming Jesse's just main proof point. It is about fun.
It's about fun.
So already like, okay, we know how do we bring it back? You got to make it a fun brand.
Yeah.
You got to make it about the experience.
Yeah.
Like the way the studio looks is specific to,
and I think I think the secondary messaging is like, this isn't the right wording at all, but it's like, fun that actually works. Do you know what I mean? Like if you can confirm to people that this is, yeah, you know what? It turns out that Jesse, you said it, which was like in other parts of the world, did you know that people like get productive workouts by enjoying the workout?
I mean, there's actual science behind that. I'm not going to remember exactly who to quote or where to quote it from, but literally many people will start working out and they eventually stop doing it, but it's proven that you will continue to do something if you enjoy doing it. So literally, all these brands that talk about that or that present themselves as though they really care about your longevity and the results, and not just the physical results, but what it does to you internally and how it, you know, makes you healthier so you can live longer, all of these things. If you really did believe that, you'd make it fun. Yeah. Because people will stick with it and they'll have a good, like literally if you have a good time. And that's completely
lost from the narrative right now. Is there any brands that really speak to fun in athletic and exercise right now? I'm scratching my head. I'm sure you both know better than me, but I can't think of any.
Not in the way that, not in the way that I would say is core to the brand.
I agree.
Like I've seen ads where, you know, it's people having
creativity
fun,
of soccer,
supposedly,
stuff like that.
Or they're like running together, smiling,
and then having a non-alcoholic beer.
And then having a non-alcoholic beer.
Or a Michelob Ultra.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. But I don't think a brand that's built the product, the experience with fun at the core.
Yes.
I don't think that exists. Not that I know of.
Experience, I think, is the key. I agree with you. I think the study, like the article you're bringing up, is really interesting. There's a massive cultural difference, and it's true in the US. It is about the hustle and the ground and the competitive nature of everything. And I mean, obviously when you talk about sports, you talk about Nike. Just look at what Nike released for the Olympics, and all of this is
opposite.
It's front and center. It's the opposite. It's all about like,
go kill yourself.
Exactly.
And then kill others.
Exactly.
To get there.
And when you look at, I have very little knowledge about Brazilian culture, but you can see, you travel around Brazil, especially beach towns, and like people are really fit. And what do? They play volleyball, they surf, they play football. I mean, soccer. I mean, they're football. Yeah. They play fresco ball. They they're having fun. And they're really fit. Yeah, maybe they go to the gym too, but they're really fit, and they like, it's part of the thing. You go to Europe, it's all about football, and there is a component of fun. That's true. There is like slight tangent. There is a thing about how the US approaches staying fit that is really valuable, around like teaching you in your early years how to take care of your body physically, which is not part of like European cultures. And then as you get older, then everything gets fucked because you didn't like work out and you didn't go to the gym and you just like play tennis and play football. But the people who are like who play football at 15 and can still play if they take care of themselves at 45, they will still play at 45.
Yeah.
Like, why? Because they're having fun.
Yeah.
So it is, I'm just double downing on what Jesse's saying. I think if you make fun the thing, the anchor, and with this, there's the opportunity to do it with the actual product, meaning the experience, as opposed to the other, like basically the competition.
Do you mean classes instead of videos?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean the actual experience. There's gonna be music.
Yeah.
There's gonna be, I think, if we talked about having someone who's like an entertaining instructor, a la Peloton.
Oh, that's interesting. Merchandising it with characters.
Yes, that's what I meant, like with the Jane Fonda Peloton thing.
Yes.
There's probably going to be a certain aesthetic to it that's going to be drawing you in. There's a community thing that we've been talking about. All of this is all around fun and the experience. And I think that's pretty unique today in the market.
This is interesting because, okay, so we're getting closer. I'm just checking. We're under 20 minutes. We're under 20 minutes to cracking it. We've agreed that we need to somehow position it around fun. We've agreed that the community element, doing something out in the world, is going to be our lead pony. But of course, it's not to say we can't do social around showing the fun we're having and stuff like that. I think one thing I do think is a little bit important is you create a situation where it is a little bit of a blank slate where other people can bring different flavors of fun, especially if it's like, I think what we're getting to now is a little bit of a personality driven kind of product that we're selling, right? We are selling the idea of, you're going to go to so-and-so's class. Why? Because they're fun, they're entertaining, and you're going to have fun, and it's your kind of fun. And then you're going to meet the kind of people who like the same kind of fun you do. Is that all fair right now? Is that what we've established?
Yes.
Yeah.
2028 LA Olympics. Aerobics.
We're going to get it in?
As the replacement to breakdancing. But maybe...
I think she was doing aerobics.
That's exactly where I'm going.
I think that ship has sailed, because you know what sports are replacing, like all those weird sports we had in Paris.
Flag football, right?
Just the sports the American can win. Softball, flag football.
That's a brilliant idea, first of all.
Yeah.
But who's to say we couldn't win aerobics?
I think we could. I think we get a killer aerobics team going very quickly.
I mean, I actually think it could be interesting, though.
I'm Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want either of you guys to start the national aerobics team.
I'm not winning, don't worry.
Yeah. Well, you do have the shoes. But it is interesting, actually. I think about the Olympics as an interesting place to maybe launch the concept of aerobics, because here you are in the face of the best of the best, the most hardcore version of every sport on earth. And what if you surrounded the entire experience with actual like fitness fun?
Yeah.
I don't know why you would wait till 2028, because this is such a good business idea. But anyway, it just came to mind.
So keep going, Roman. Sorry. So, okay. We got it. We got to get to our pitch. We are now literally 16 minutes away from figuring out whether we cracked it or not. And here's what we know so far: fun, character driven, a little bit of a blank slate, and where anyone can bring their own fun to it. Community is a key part of it. Anything I've missed so far? Subcultures. So everyone else can have their own interpretation of aerobics.
Cross-generational, which I actually think is quite interesting.
Making it very inclusive.
Yeah, we talk about cross-generational entertainment and fun, like a workout that actually works, the community element, the social element. I think all of this sorry, go ahead.
Am I allowed to introduce another challenge or question at this point in the process? At the very beginning, you said one of the barriers is it got a reputation for being corny. Yeah. And I think my immediate reaction was like, I don't know, is corny still a bad thing? But what's coming up in my head now is where does fun turn corny and where does corny become fun? And is that a line you have to be careful of?
This was why I thought the idea of it being a bit of a blank slate was so important, because I think the corniness came from it sort of chased down one flavor and kind of just got more and more cartoonish in that flavor until the narrative around it was
became an exaggerated version of itself.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Whereas if you have different versions of it, you can find different ways in. I think the other watch out I'm still trying to figure out how not to do is that I was actually listening to something interesting earlier today, which was like, if you remember 15 or 20 years ago, Starbucks used to feel like, oh my gosh, the cool coffee shop came to my town. And now it feels more like fast food, right? It feels more like it's just like, it's not as fancy, it's not as special, but that was kind of the invention of the third place. And what I'm trying to figure out with this one is if your audience is everyone, how does it not get watered down to being for everyone? How do you prevent that from happening? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I was thinking about many other challenges as you were talking about this, but let's talk about that. Like, we're talking about spanning multiple generations. I think we talked about the Jane Fonda, whatever, the stereotypes of aerobics. Yeah. I think that's going to play in. Where do you go? Totally. Yeah. What does it look like? When you start talking about what does your ad look like? Okay, it gives you an idea that suddenly you're probably not talking to, my parents. Yeah. And you
got to make a choice.
We've done this for like in our forever. Entire career. You just like, you go there and you pick one.
Well, that's a good question. You actually talked about that.
What's your product for?
Who are you targeting? Who are you targeting first?
I don't know yet. Because I think there's a massive business in what Jesse was saying in like targeting. I wouldn't go as far as like the boomers, but I would target like Gen Xers. But I also think there's a business in the younger generation. I think there are different ways to slice the business. The experience is going to be different, but I think there's a business in both.
Jesse, what about you?
I don't know. I always have to ask the question of, is the idea bigger than a demographic? Because if you look at not that like aerobics, I don't think needs to make an enemy out of anybody for sure. Like we don't need to be against the boot camps of the world I don't think by any means.
Especially if you're meant to be a fun brand.
Totally. You would not have an enemy. You would be very happy about the state of the world. But I think that there's a need for fun because right now there is a lack of fun.
Yes.
And so if you introduce that concept, I know it sounds so simple, but if you introduce the concept of fun fitness, are you not potentially targeting anyone who believes, who's like, I want that?
And maybe this might just be me, but if you're not targeting a specific audience out of the gate, what's your hook?
You have to build from something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I used to work with a British genius who always said, I don't give a fuck about the audience.
I think we all know who that is.
I don't know. That's how, and I've always respected that thought.
But I don't think he meant by that it can be for everyone.
No, I know.
No, but it's not for everyone, because I think anybody who loves getting their ass kicked at a boot camp is going to be like, I'm not going to some aerobics class.
That's interesting. It's a counter position. You're never calling it out. You're never doing anything where you're being mean. But as a counter positioning of shouldn't fitness be fun is kind of interesting.
That's what it is. It is. Shouldn't fitness be fun?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing killing yourself when you can have like a result that's good for your health and you can also have fun?
Mm-hmm.
Like
so much fun.
Yeah.
But probably science should invent some sort of like liquid that you can drink after the class so that your muscles get sore instead of unsore. It's like whatever the opposite of ibuprofen is, take that so that you walk out feeling like you did, because there's such a mental barrier.
I'm sure you can make aerobics. It's like Peloton.
Absolutely.
Like Peloton. Choose your instructor.
I was going to say,
true.
Exactly. If this becomes, I think what we're talking about is a fun, inclusive experience in a group setting where you're going to have a character leading it. And so if you wanted to go for I'm going to have a dude or a female dude who wants to have a lot of fun and literally like, let's just laugh and move and all that stuff. You have that option. But I think you could also have all right, we got like psycho boot camp aerobics flavor.
Yeah, that's true. You can have psycho aerobics.
Psycho aerobics is actually a pretty good brand.
I mean, that's
Psycho-aerobics.
Psycho-aerobics.
No, that's just.
That's really good.
It is really good.
That's actually almost what aerobics sounds like backwards.
Because it's all just going super fast.
Sibbery.
But I mean, I think this is the thing is like, I think, okay, the blank slateness of it, the fun, the joy, the inclusiveness, we're starting to get somewhere with it. So let's bring this into like more of a tangible thought. Tomorrow, some investor is very interested in your take on how you are going to build an aerobics, let's call it like an aerobics franchise to take over America. What's your pitch?
I think there's a step before that.
Okay.
I think it's got to be cult. So I think you got to start local.
Okay.
I think you got to...
No, this is good.
I think you got to get a location or two in one specific location. I actually think LA is a good one. Santa Monica, something very cliche. And
start a club.
And you start a little club. You bring in someone semi-famous that's gonna get the community excited.
An influencer?
Yeah, probably. Like whoever it is, but someone that's got some clout and I think you start local. You got to do it a little old school. I don't think it's like we're going to have 120 locations in the next 12 months because it's got to feel really.
I agree.
It's got to feel real.
Yeah.
It's got to feel like it's an actual workout because it's still a workout. We don't want people to just come over and like, oh yeah, that was no. We want you to work out.
Yeah.
We're like competing with the gyms and all of the other people we talked about. So that would be my take is like start local.
Okay. So let's build on this. This is great. So we open up one gym. It's in, let's say, Santa Monica. We have someone who's a semi-famous fitness influencer who's got an interesting voice, fun character to just kind of go after that market specifically. We start to get some people interested because it's fun. It's interesting. It's a workout, which we underline, fun workout. And then what do we do next? Do we start inviting other flavors of it, or do we keep that flavor going and try and open up other places?
I think there's a couple of things you do next. You can expand geographically, but like physical retail is pretty capital heavy. So I do think you have some moment of at home or with your community, or do you have a bit of a, dare I say, Tupperware model, or do you have you need to find some ways for the thing to spread without needing to open a physical location every single time.
Interesting.
Right.
Yes.
So that's
utilize next door and you do it in a park.
Brilliant.
Like I think that's part of the beauty of aerobics.
And you be out in public.
Absolutely.
People can see it.
And that's absolutely. You put it in the center of the city, you put it wherever, you use next door to create local communities.
Next door, the most under-leveraged channel in
100%.
marketing.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
That's how you start aerobics.
And you have it
in
now happening in
2025.
public where people start seeing how much fun they're having.
And then you bring the investors to a class.
And then you also, I mean, I think needless to say, like the beauty of aerobics is like it's inherently interesting on social channels, right? Like this is fun. This is silly. This is movement. This is all those things. Like I said it half jokingly, but like TikTok dances are sort of weirdly
Aerobic exercise.
a little bit parallel to it. You know what I mean? So you can see how right away you have a marketing strategy that's pretty low lift with respect to actually like having to pay for paid or anything like that. Right?
I think you can also like borrow from the Peloton playbook in things like a Disney version of an aerobics class. Like you utilize, like we talked about subcultures in a way that was more of a personality, or maybe more music based, but I actually think you can do like it's the Disney class, which already means that any Disney fan is going to dress up in a certain way. They're already part of a community. Maybe the class is at Disney. I don't know. Like, I think that you can really expand. I really believe in the subculture model.
So we're building ground up.
Totally.
This is what we're going to do.
Next door.
Yeah.
I think you gotta build credibility at some. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Who are you targeting with that first gym? We said Santa Monica, obviously geographically, but as far as like generationally and stuff like that, the way we've been talking about it, to me, it feels younger. But I want to go back to that point you mentioned earlier where you were saying maybe it's older. And the only reason is, this is a weird thing to say, are older generations inherently less viral than younger generations?
Hell no.
Really?
I don't think so.
I agree with Jesse.
Interesting.
I think it's so easy to believe that the biggest influencers, I mean, look, everybody's algorithm is different. Your algorithm is basically a tunnel vision for your life. So like, who's to really say? But I think there are so many brilliant, funny, engaging influencers. Some, I think more, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's my age, like more so than some of just the younger generations. I don't think that to go viral. What I see now is like people turning to I guess call them older influencers for like comedic wisdom about life, especially, and we don't need to get political by any means, at least not on this episode, but just given the world we live in right now, like there's so much comedic wisdom coming from older generations.
Yeah.
I don't buy it that it has to be young to be viral.
I agree with Jesse.
That's interesting.
I think, I still think the nostalgia plays a play.
Yeah.
And I still think you go, I'm very bad at associating letters with generations, but I think if you go like mid to older millennials,
Totally.
I think you got it. That's where you're going to play both nostalgia, like they were like really young, but it still strikes a chord, and definitely looking for fun.
Yeah.
Because they're like in the thick of it,
You're probably
very often
making
young parents, you see what I mean? Like it's, I think you play with the aesthetics, and I'm not saying you got to go like 80s aesthetics, but you make it fun and modern.
I know like this is a silly thing, but like, I know like even as a parent, like if you have an excuse to do something where you can then grab a beer after, like this feels like that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like modern beer league.
And frankly, if you have an excuse to have fun while working out, it's like, it's insane. Most workouts are individual. I got to go to the gym. I'm going to get on my Peloton. You're going to go and meet people. You're going to go and meet my friends. Like one, I know it's super hippie and whatever. It's woo-woo and etc. But one brand that did it amazing in terms of creating community through workouts is The Class. They're like, it's a cult. It's a fucking cult. It's amazing. Like people are like, woo, 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 JC, I fucking love you. And JC is absolutely amazing. I don't want to remove any credit. I'm not talking about Jesse, huh?
Yeah.
But you're
but
amazing
also,
too.
yes.
Yeah. But people go there physically now that they're back in studio to have a moment, not of fun, but more of like communion or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And to have a moment with peers, with people.
Yes.
And so it's more than just a workout. And that's what I mean. It's like if you have a thing where it's not, sure, if you add a beer afterwards, that's great. But it's also, I'm going to get out of my house, I'm going to have a workout, and also I'm going to have fun. Like,
that's great. We got 55 seconds left. Jesse, you're dying to say something.
No, because that's the difference. That's the difference between how the US looks at fitness and how everybody else in the world. It's not the fitness is the thing that you have to schedule time for, and then the fun happens after. You make the fitness fun, and it no longer becomes something that you have to force into your schedule.
Yeah. I love that.
All right. Last question. Did we crack it?
Well, no, we got 30 seconds left. If anything wants that, I will recap the pitch after the next 25 seconds. Is there anything else we want to add?
Oh my God.
No, I fucking love this. I think it's a brilliant idea.
I genuinely wish there was an aerobics class.
I will say,
I could go to.
if there's anyone with like a gym studio, ideally in the LA area, because we live here and we can partner, who's like kind of like struggling with like retention or format of classes or anything, just give us a ring.
You're getting the Oscar music.
We got the Oscar music. We are officially done. Okay. So did we crack it? Here's the question. I'm going to recap and keep me honest. At the very, very, very core level, this is about bringing fun back to exercise. Something that feels sort of absent in the modern American fitness, what we call it? Culture. Exactly. And we also want to kind of, as a secondary thing, show it does work and there's proof behind it. And there's all sorts of wonderful things about that. We want to make sure that we keep it open enough that it doesn't fall into some of the pratfalls it did before, right? Which is we're going to give people, this is, I think we mentioned, it's from the ground up. This is giving people the opportunity to fill in the blanks of how best to do this, the most interesting ways to do it, ways that add to their culture, ways that create community, all sorts of wonderful things that do that. And if we were going to kind of do a test case of how we're going to do this, we would open up an aerobics gym in Santa Monica. We would go after, let's say, older millennials. We would have our coaches be really fun, interesting characters who are also, let's call them like fitfluencers, those types of people, do interesting content, know this world, and really start to build a community of fun and joy around exercise. From there, what we would start to see as our potential tactics are next door, which is obviously a great place where we can really start to spread the word, as well as starting to find a way to integrate both social as well as out in public instances where people can see the fun and joy that other people are having and start to kind of get curiosity around that, while leaving a wide enough aperture so that they could inform their own sort of aerobic kind of fun, joy, different ways of playing it sort of things to it. And we smell big opportunity here in this whole idea of just starting something that feels joyous and fun back in exercise. Is there anything I missed?
An apparel brand.
An apparel brand too. Did we crack it?
Hell yeah, in my opinion. I'm sold.
I think we cracked it.
We cracked it. All right. Well, that's it. That's the entire episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, don't hesitate to reach out. Shoot us an email at hello@crackitpodcast.com. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you really, really, really love us, please go and rate us or favorite us or just tell a friend all about how cool we are so that they should listen too. But otherwise, Jesse, Roman, another great chat.
A pleasure.
I'll see you guys on Monday.
That was fun. The bar is high. The bar is high,
bar
dude.
is very
That's a
high.
great, great problem to crack.
We cracked aerobics. We'll crack another one, and we'll see you all next time. And take it easy. Thank you. Goodbye.